Good evening. I'm Brad Gruhat, Director of your Marshall Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to the Local Candidates Forum, which comes to you live from the Marshall Area YMCA. A special welcome to those of you listening on KMHL, AM 1400, and watching on Marshall Community Access Channel. The Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce takes an active role in local, state, and federal policy issues through its Government Affairs Committee. If you'd like to be part of our activities, please visit with me after. Our thanks to KMHL, the Marshall Independent, and Marshall Community Access TV for helping us share these debates with the residents of Lyon County. Our first panel features candidates for Lyon County Commissioner. The candidates will respond to questions read by our media panel and will finish with closing statements of 2 minutes each. Our panelists are Aaron Zemer, News Director of Marshall Broadcasting, and Karen Elton, reporter for the Marshall Independent. If you have a question for the candidates, please take a card from our usher. They will gather your questions and deliver them to your panelists, who will select questions of general interest and relevance to this election. And now let's meet the candidates. Running unopposed in District 1 is Charles Sanow, and in District 5 is Rick Anderson, both of whom will not be attending tonight. The candidates in District 4 are Gary Crowley and Joel Dahl. Candidates, you'll have up to 90 seconds to respond to each question, and you can take less if you'd like. Mike will be keeping time right in front of you, and will gently remind you if you're using too much time. We'll rotate the order of speaking in order of which you're seated. So Gary will have the first answer for the first question, Joel Dahl for the second question, and so forth. Panelists, your first question, please.
Recent solar energy projects in Lyon County have proven controversial with members of the public. What is your position on renewable energy development in Lyon County?
Well, it so happened I just drove past the solar panel farm that they're building just east of Marshall here just yesterday. And I thought to myself, you know, this is the future. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but you got to look for the future in renewable energies. And I think what some people don't realize, the amount of money that it's going to come back to our county in taxes that they pay, and the county also gets a share of the money that they produce there, and that'll come back to the county to help us with our other means that we can use it for in the county.
Yeah, I would support solar projects just as I have been in favor of wind projects. I don't think it's an answer to everything for our power supply. I think there are still other things that are needed, but it's new technology. As you look around the state, whether you go east of Marshall or up by Paynesville, you see these solar farms coming up all over. And so, you know, they're getting that technology going where they can put it right in the grid. There were some problems, I think, when they try and retain it in battery systems, but when they can bring it right onto the grid, bring it online and move that power around, I think it's a benefit. So I think the ability for Lyon County to have a solar farm here, and I concur with Gary, it's not always the favored thing if you're the farm neighbor right next door, or if you had a windmill set up and the first ones that were out there were kind of noisy, you didn't like that either. But I do think that it's the future of energy, and I think it does do a lot to help our renewable resources.
Do you feel Lyon County needs to amend its tobacco ordinance? Why or why not?
Well, I've sat in on a couple of the meetings where they've talked about it. I didn't attend the public hearing. I think they need to bring it up in line with certain things. The one thing that I would not have supported, and I think, as I understand it, the current county commissioners feel the same way, and that is setting prices and numbers of products that retailers can sell. You know, part of my platform, I guess, is some of the things Not that smoking tobacco isn't a concern, but I think drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and some of the things that affect the mental health of our citizens are somewhat more important. And to say that a retailer can only sell a cigar in a certain pack or this pack or that pack, we all know that the days of having the little cigarettes that you could blow the powder out of, as we had when I was a kid anyhow, are not good things to be encouraging. We're all taking a healthier attitude on our health, and I think that we need to bring it up to standards so that the Indoor Clean Air Act, I think, is terrific. You can go and enjoy a meal and not get smoked out. So we want to stay up with what the current statutes are, as well as with our ordinance.
I attended the county commissioner meetings. I've been attending all the county commissioner meetings since I filed, and their discussion. And I felt that as a county, we should not be dictating what a business can do and sell and price. I understand why it was brought forth to keep the young people away from it. But I also understand that we got to look at how do we do that with our young generation today. If they can't buy it there, they're going to get it somewhere else. And you pretty much, we know that with drugs today. They're still finding them, and they're finding ways to get it. So as a business owner, I don't feel that we should be telling them, what they can do and what they can't. So I feel that I think and I don't think as a county it's in our place to make them regulations. And we have state regulations for the smoking and stuff. There is laws, and can you imagine what kind of enforcement it would take to try to do them law like that in Lyon County? We don't have the manpower to do that. Thank you.
Funding transportation infrastructure is an ongoing challenge in Lyon County. What is your approach to supporting the maintenance of county roads and bridges?
Well, I think that's talking to the people of Lyon County. Everybody is concerned about infrastructure and roads and bridges. It's from the state out here in southwest Minnesota, it seems like we don't get a good shake at dollars coming our way to repair our roads and stuff, and each year the funding keeps going down. What we get. We got to be proactive what do we want or what we need here in our county, and try to promote our needs for our roads to travel, to get the farmers to get their crops to town. Not much is done with rail, just in and out of town now. A lot of it's semi trucks, and we need to keep our roads in good repair for that. So that is one of the main things that we got to keep working on, to try to lobby and continue to get support as much possible and keep our roads up. Because once you start letting them go, you're going to have problems down the road. Thank you.
I would first of all take a stance to applaud our current county commissioners who had the foresight to first of all change the sales tax structure for road maintenance or construction, but then also to go, even though we're not pleased with it, the $10 license plate fee for the maintenance of things. As funding from the state gets less and less, especially to our rural counties, that sometimes you wonder if they know we're even out here. I think the board, although I probably wasn't always in favor of the best idea, but I think the board made a good decision, and that money, as it comes in now, will help when we don't get state funds to fund road and bridge projects and to maintain those. That's the other side. It's not easy to put a road down, but it's not easy to keep it maintained as well. So I applaud them for doing that, and I support that theory. Even though it increased the taxes, I think it's something that we have to really look at. I'm concerned transportation is one of my key issues that I'm concerned about, and especially the Highway 23 thoroughfare through here. I've attended some meetings with MnDOT that, because I'm a member of a church that happens to be along Highway 23, that they're looking at safety issues on, but also the rest of them. It's something we have to really stay up on and stay attentive to.
I know you just mentioned transportation, but what do you see as the key issues for Lyon County in your district?
In my district, I think there's been quite a bit of construction going on in the last couple of years already with the roads up there. I am concerned about Highway 23, again, that corridor. Living in Cottonwood, there are more close calls than anyone really wants to realize, and I think the county has to continue to work with MnDOT on a plan for whether it's passing lanes or whatever to get in and out of Cottonwood, access it in a safer manner. For the motoring public, you know, that highway creates a lot of accidents. And as far as in District 4, there's a lot of good projects going on, and I think that they are getting some attention to roads that haven't been taken care of and now are in that process. And again, I'll say that license plate fee that we pay every time we get our plates for $10, that's going into a pot for maintaining those improvements. So hopefully Lyon County cannot be the county that says, oh, I knew when I was getting close to home because the car started bumping. We're getting better, and I have a lot of respect for the highway department and their staff in the job they're trying to do to keep our roads in good condition.
I think right now there's good roads out there in Lyon County in my district, and there's bad roads. There's some that need attention. But I applaud Lyon County because they're continuing, the commissioners are continuing to work on new projects every year so that they're not all in need of repair at one time. You know, right now, the cost for the stuff to put on roads to rebuild them is at an all-time low because the fuel price is low. This would be a good time for us to really try to do some projects that need to be done. And what I am not surprised, but with Lyon County, they have a 10-year plan out there for every county road that there is to what their plans are in the future when that road's going to have to be redone or resurfaced or repaired, and they don't always fall in that line. But at least they have a plan for years ahead, so they're looking ahead. And just for your information, I don't know if everybody knows this, but I did some checking. There's 480 miles of county road in Lyon County. That's a lot of roads to take care of and maintain, especially in the wintertime. And about a third of them are gravel roads yet. The more tar roads we have, the more funding we get back from the state.
What can be done to keep county taxes and spending low while still providing needed services?
Now that's a tough one. It's like if you're going to cut your tax or lower your taxes, you got to cut somebody. Somebody's got to go without or take less. And the thing with it is, the county has so many things that it's not just roads, it's human services, it's protection. People want, you know, our law enforcement center, people want, so it's really hard to decide which, if you really needed to cut, where you would cut. And what I feel, if the need comes where we have to cut, let's say 1% or whatever the figure is, I think fairly it needs to be across the whole board of all our committees and stuff that Lyon County has anything to do with. That would be my approach. To be fair, I want to have fair distribution of our levy dollars and be fair to everybody, and not, we need, the small towns got to be treated just as well as the larger ones.
I guess I would, first of all, I look back at the time that I was the county sheriff and working on a budget for one of the years, and it was recommended at the time, and this was back in the 2007, 8, maybe 7, when things were in a downturn, maybe earlier than that, and the department heads were each asked to put their budget together, but then reduce it by 1%, similar to what Gary just said. And 1% on a lot of these budgets doesn't really account for a whole lot, but in the grand picture of things, it could end up to be quite a bit. The current county's proposed levy, if you look at the numbers and you look at the departments, I think they're all trying to be very, very good and stay within the boundaries. You see some that are higher, some that concern me, but it's all a matter of watching the dollar. District 4, with the north part of it, is 9 townships. It's probably the largest land area of Lyon County. There's a lot of farms in that area, and a lot of taxes get wielded against those farms, as well as others. But I think we can do some creative cutting and bring it in line, even if it's just 1%. That makes a difference.
Are there any questions from the audience? Anybody grab a card?
We've heard a lot about clean water from Governor Dayton's administration. What role should the county play in enforcing buffer strips and ensuring that the area has clean water?
Well, not being a farmer, I'm not an expert on this, but the one thing that I keep saying to myself when I hear him talk about these buffer strips that are away from the ditches and the waterways is that that's probably okay. It's probably not all bad, but what about out in the field where all the intakes are, where all the water goes in and it goes right to that ditch anyhow? There's no attempt. I mean, there's more tiling, I think, going on today than probably ever. It's probably great for wildlife. I think the county is probably ultimately going to have to oversee some of the compliance with the setback. I personally am not in favor of it. I guess I would do as a commissioner what I could do to either step that back or really ask some questions about what makes that such a good program. We're taking farmland out of production. We're trying to feed the world, and not being a farmer, those just seem like things that tend to make me ask why. Now, maybe someone with a farming background will have a hot answer or a better answer, but I am concerned about that, and even though it looks like it's for the total good, when you have intakes coming right out of the fields that are running it right into those same waterways directly, most of the ditches are sloped back, that it doesn't run in there anyhow, so it's hard for me to understand that one.
Well, you hit a hot one for me. Because you didn't, Joe, but the question, because I've been on the Soil Water Board for the last 10 years, and I am a farmer. And with this new buffer law, I have 20-some acres that are going to come out of production on land that I either own or rent. I don't think it's fair. If they would decide to put a road through my farm, I'm going to get paid for it. Probably not what I want, but I'm going to get paid for it. The farmers are getting zero other than if they enroll it in a program. Now we have an option. You can put it in different programs and get some money each year. Well, a lot of them that need the 50-foot, they're thinking about putting it in CRP. That's a federal program. That's not a state program. So we have a problem there working with one thing state and one federal. after 15 years, what's going to happen? There's going to be $0 coming in on them acres, and the farmers still have to pay taxes on it. I would be in favor of a 16-foot buffer on every ditch so everything is equal. A lot of these ditches don't need buffers. You know, like Joe said, they don't slope to the ditch. So if we could only get that where we could have it so every waterway is pretty much a fair shake, you might say.
If elected, what would be your priorities as a Lyon County Commissioner?
Well, I think we go back to priority. You know, everybody drives on the roads, so roads, maintenance, infrastructure is going to be the priority. I gotta, as a farmer, I gotta have conservation in there. I'm very concerned about the health care of the residents of Lyon County. The rates, the number of calls coming into our police or to the sheriff's office for mental health is just keeps climbing constantly. So we have a lot of residents out here that they have nowhere to turn, and because they need health care, they have mental health problems, and they have nowhere else to turn. So that's another one of my concerns, you know. But yet, I would strongly work towards trying to keep the levy low as possible. But yet, we have to, when you talk about the levy, you don't want to get in a position what happened to the county. They did not lower or raise the levy for 3 or 4 years straight. And then all of a sudden they had to do it 8% because they got in trouble, they got behind. A little goes a long ways each year. You got to stay up with the cost of living expense and cost of upkeep of equipment and stuff.
I think any issue that comes before the county commissioners is an important issue to someone. Mine, in this particular case, I've said our transportation, number one, public safety, how the public is cared for, and included with that, mental health, drug awareness, and help with that. Some issues with suicide, both for children and adults, but you know, those are the three things that I would really sit up and take notice on. Some of that comes from my background as being in law enforcement for about 35 years. I remember when the state, in its infinite wisdom, started closing down all the mental health hospitals and started bringing them back to the communities in behavioral health hospitals, and a sheriff was pulling his hair out of where he could even take someone that needed care. It wasn't until Vera Marshall decided to take that over, which really helped to have a facility close to give us some relief on that. But it's still an issue and remains an issue. And I think for those of you on the Marshall City Council that were there the other night when the Avera decided to give some money for a police officer to the city of Marshall, you'll realize that the care that they have and the concern they have is something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, panelists and candidates. It's now time for your closing statements. Your 2-minute closing statement, please, Mr. Dahl.
Well, thank you, first of all, Brad, for facilitating, and to the Marshall Chamber for hosting this forum. I think regardless of how this goes, you're going to get a good candidate, because I think Gary has a lot of the same thoughts that I do, and I think he's got good common sense ideas. So I don't think the voters will go wrong one way or the other. It'll be interesting. I look forward to, I have the time, if I am elected, to serve on the county commission, and would do the best job that I could. Having the background I did working with the sheriff's office, I think gives me some some background in how the county operates, and certainly it's changed a lot since that. I've retired now for 8 years, but there's a lot of things that I don't know and that will be a learning curve, which Gary has a lot of expertise in that he has learned. And so, again, like I say, I think regardless of how this election goes, the citizens of Lyon County are going to be the winners by a candidate being elected to the county commission. And Gary, I wish you the very best, and again, I thank the Chamber and Brad for hosting this.
Thank you. Mr. Crowley.
Once again, I'd like to thank Brad for taking charge of this, and KHML, and also the Chamber for hosting this. So you learn about us, so you can make a choice. And I do think Joe and we do kind of think on the same wavelength, you might say. I think we're both kind of conservative, but yet open-minded. I just like to say I feel that I'm qualified for this position because of my past experiences on various boards, especially the past 10 years on the Soil Water Board. That's what got me interested in being running for county commissioner, working with county commissioners on various boards. I've been involved in other things, the Yellow Medicine Watershed, the Advisory Board, Yellow Medicine Shed One Plan, Liaison Committee. Them are just some boards that I'm currently on. And I feel that my experience owning and operating my own farm gives me an edge, because I look at running the county as almost like running a farm. You got to have a plan. You got to make plans, and you got to stick to your plans so that you can be successful. And there's times when you got to pull the reins back, especially with $3 corn. So I would just like to say thank you, and I'd ask you for your support in November 8th. Thank you.
This concludes our debate for the county commissioners. Candidates, thank you for participating. Good luck to you all. We will now take a short pause as the next panelists take their places. We will resume the panel for the Marshall City Council at 7 o'clock. All right, let's get started again. Welcome back. Hopefully you got a water and a cookie in the back. We'll now hear from the candidates for the Marshall City Council. We'll follow the same format as before, questions from the audience and the media panel, then closing statements of 2 minutes each. Our panelists once again are Karen Elton from the Marshall Independent and Aaron Zemer from Marshall Radio. If you do have a question for the candidates, Cal has cards here. He'd be a pass out for you. We have 8 candidates for Marshall City Council this year. In order to give more time tonight to the contested races, Mayor Burns will not participate. Running in Ward 1 are Glenn Bayer-Kohler, Noel Ayala, and Donald Edblum. Ed Bloom. Running in Ward 2, Larry Doom and Stephen Meister. And in Ward 3, Elaine Conyers, John Barrows, and James Lazinski. Candidates, you'll have up to 60 seconds to respond to each question, and you can take less if you'd like. Please be alert for our timekeeper, Mike, who will signal when you're down to 30 seconds, 10 seconds, and then when you're done. We'll rotate the order in which you respond. Panelists, your first question.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to run for Marshall City Council.
Okay, now we're ready? Okay. Well, I'm Glenn Bayer-Kohler, and I teach accounting at the university, and I've taught there for about 28 years. So I'm used to talking to a group of about 30 to 40 students. I've been in Marshall here for 28 years, and I believe I have a background that is useful on the city council. I bring certain experience and talents and knowledge that I think help the city council. I certainly have a background in accounting. I'm a certified public accountant. I have a master's in accounting degree, okay, and I have a law degree. So I think I can read contracts, interpret contracts, and help the city with ordinances and contracts. Why I'm running for the city council again is I feel I have talents and abilities, and I want to share those talents and abilities with the city of Marshall. It's a great community to live in, and I hope I can contribute something positively to that community. So. Well, thank you.
Hi, my name is Noel Ayala. I've been here in Marshall since 2009. Since living here in Marshall, I've met a lot of people and got to get to know their families and get into businesses that, you know, I've worked for and listened to their ideas and then compare with, you know, the community that I live in. And I think that even though I don't got too much experience in the whole council as my background, but I believe that having an open mind and being able to listen to the community, I am able to put out there and show that I can actually help out our community and make it grow.
Good evening. I am currently on the City Planning and Zoning Commission. I am a former City Council member for 8 years. I spent 10 years on the Marshall Utility Commission, and I've been active in other committees and commissions and boards throughout my life here in Marshall. I've been here about 40 years now. And the reason I decided to run this year was to give my experience back to the community. I have time, I have the talent, I have an accounting background. I have worked the whole time I've been in Marshall, other than 1 year, I've worked at the old Becker Iron and Metal scrapyard as the office manager, and right now I'm still employed there as the chief buyer. So I'm familiar with the community, and I've got plenty of experience.
Good evening. I'm Larry Doom. I've been on the Marshall City Council for the past 12 years. Prior to that, I served on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 2 terms. I've been very active in the community since I've lived here in the last 45 years. Active in the church and community, and I enjoy people. I like to work for people, and I think I can serve the people, and I think I've done that well in the past. I would like to continue to promote the growth within the city of Marshall, you know, as far as buildings and construction and those type of things. Also, I feel that I'm a good communicator. I'm able to listen to people and work things out in that matter, and I would like to serve you again.
I'm Steve Meister, and I've been in Marshall for about 12 years now, since 2004. I came here originally in 1995 as a medical student where I did an RPAP under Dr. Bill Kozrowski. My wife and I fell in love with this community and figured, well, if we can get back, we will, and everything fell into place and we were able to come back. The Navy paid for my medical school. I was a lieutenant commander in the Navy when I got out, 7 years in the Navy. So the leadership is there as a naval officer. Why do I want to do what this job entails? I think we need a change in this city. I think that we need to find a new direction, continue to grow in a good way, a positive way, realizing that the future is really up for grabs. We don't know what the future is. With the economic development, the economic times, politics from the government level at the federal level, it's tough. So I think we need a new change, new faces on the council, and so I would ask for your vote.
I'm Elaine Conyers, and my first job was here in Marshall as a paraprofessional at the first middle school here, and then I moved on to area extension service and worked out of Redwood Falls. But during that 10-year period, I was transferred up to St. Paul and worked for the 4-H director, and then I supervised the civil service staff. Well, then I got lonesome for Marshall, so I came back, and then I was approached to take over the museum that had been closed for a couple of years. So I was director there for 21 years, and I have enjoyed being on the council because there's so many positive things that go on in Marshall, and especially over the last 7 years or so. And I'd like to see those things continue, and that's why I'm running.
Hello, my name is John Burrows. I'm been living in Marshall for about 10 years since I moved back. I am a Marshall High School graduate and SSU, dating myself, SMSU graduate. Bought my first house ever about 9 years ago, and as a homeowner, I've kept up with the local politics and so forth. And like Dr. Meister said, I do believe that we do need to look at a new way. What I'm really looking forward to is trying to bring more fiscal responsibility, because I believe our spending is way out of control.
Hello, I'm James Lozinski. I'm a lifelong resident of Marshall. Been here 44 years, did math wrong. My wife and 4 children are from Marshall. My children actually went to the same school I did, and it's kind of funny because Dr. Meister helped deliver our second child. So why I want to run for city council is I think that the city is going in a good direction, but I think the city council needs some change to keep that direction going positive. I do think, as these 2 folks said, there is some overspending, and I think that there should be some more fiscal responsibility. I also think that there's been some over-regulation by our city as we recently came up with new ordinances and new rules, and I think the private sector needs to have less regulation, because with less regulation, the private sector will flourish. So, thank you.
Noel, you can start things off by answering this next question, and we can continue with the spending aspect. What is your position on current city spending? How should we proceed in the future?
I believe that the spending is, like we've heard already, it is out of control. Too many things are going on and started, as well. And some of these projects, street projects are going on. Then we're going into other areas and starting those projects. It's kind of making an inconvenience for everybody. I think that if we can somehow manage the way of our spending and controlling it and getting the what's and the hows and where and when and all that more into detail and organize in a better way, we can also help out our city to be able to maintain the budget here and not be so just spend out and then we're trying to recover by raising our taxes and things like that.
I know when I was on the city council previously, we always, at that time, tried to keep our level of spending in the new year to the cost of living or less every year. And I think that is a wise policy to put into effect. My goal was always between 1% to 2%. And then back in those days, the cost of living was going up maybe 3% to 4% at times. But I think 1% to 2% is doable. I think we can still do the things we need to do as far as infrastructure. A lot of the infrastructure is paid for by the Utilities Commission or department and not the City of Marshall. And so you got to kind of keep that in perspective. But my goal on spending would be 1% to 2% per year, and that would be it.
That's kind of a tough question, and I firmly believe that nobody needs a tax base to increase. One of the ways to hold your taxes stable is to promote growth within your city by inviting new businesses and new residential buildings, et cetera. If those things continue to come into the town, that'll increase our tax base. Once that's established, that'll help us offset. Now, that being said, we also need to be accountable for the amount of dollars that we spend each and every day. And I agree with Don, if we can hold that to the cost of living, then I think we'll be pretty level. And once we've got that accomplished, but the city cannot grow without decent streets, good parks, and city things, like fire departments, police department protection, those type of things. You have to have all those in place. And I think we have that in place, like with our police department. We don't have a lot of crime within our city that's excessive. We have some crime, but the majority of our crime, in comparison to other things, is pretty much controlled. And I think we need to continue on those lines.
We have a population that's changing demographically. We have seen in my time here, the 12 years, a lot of the higher paid Schwann's jobs leave Marshall. That's a big tax break or tax base. So we have other people coming in that are more lower income bringing in, so the tax base goes down. We have to have the basic services like Larry said, no question. We have to have good roads. We have to build Marshall so that people in Marshall like Marshall. If we build it for others, they may not necessarily come. If you build it for the people in Marshall, when Marshallites like it, people come to visit them, they'll come and say, what a great place, let's move to Marshall. We absolutely need to grow businesses. How do you do that? Jim said that the regulations are onerous. Absolutely. I have several friends who are trying to start businesses. My wife tried to start a business. Impossible. Couldn't do it. Too many regulations. So we need to look at that to encourage more growth of small businesses and big businesses in Marshall.
Well, Actually, I think that Marshall does very well with their gathering of money and how much they spend. In fact, the Office of State Auditor and the League of Minnesota Cities have recommended that a fund balance reserves be anywhere from 35 to 50% of planned expenditures. For this past year, 2015, the reserve and the city budget was $5,521,264, and this represents that amount that the League of Nations is recommending. Our city expenses counted to $10,599,200. So we are doing, I think we're doing a good job of keeping the spending down, even though we are adding a lot of things. And we've done a lot of growth in Marshall, and like I said, in the last 7 years or so, and that's bringing more tax money in.
I look at our spending, as I said earlier, it's too much, and you know, we're in debt as a city, and we need to start paying down the debt. We need to continue to improve our roads because there are some roads in this town that are horrible. I drive on one of them every day to work, and I just don't see, you know, like Dr. Meister said, we need to start paying for things for the city, of the people of Marshall, rather than, you know, building something like a low priority, the regional sports complex, which doesn't necessarily mean if we build it, they're going to come.
Spending's a tricky question because as a business owner, I'll tell you, you have to spend to make money, but you have to be fiscally responsible in that spending. They brought up the sports center, and that's a good example of that can be good spending as long as we don't overspend on it. The jury's still out on that. We've built it. Now we need to embrace it. We need to maybe spend some more money to get people into that. So that's where, you know, spending on some of that stuff is a tricky question. Services provided to the city, you know, we got to look at what is responsible. The police department just got a grant of $80,000 for another police officer. That's great, but is that grant going to continue on year after year after year, or is that become a city expenditure in 2018? So we have to look at all that as it comes in and balance the good with the bad. We have to provide those services, and it is what it is. So.
It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone out there that I'm a fiscal conservative. And fiscal conservatives believe that government spends too much and the taxes are too high. I have an accounting background, as I mentioned before, and I can read and interpret financial statements. And every year we had audited financial statements, and it's about that thick. And I actually go through the whole thing and read it and look for areas where we can cut back on spending so that we can in turn decrease taxes. And I ask tough questions. When people come before me before the council and ask for money, I ask them tough questions. And when organizations were asking for money from the city council, I said, I want to see your financial statements. I want to see how you're spending your money to make sure it's being spent wisely. You also have to be able to say no, and I do know how to say no. And let me just give you a quick example. We have really good city employees, a good staff, good city employees, and they deserve a pay increase. But when we came to just vote on the pay increase, the city approved a 2.5% increase. The inflation rate last year was about 0.1%. And when you factor in that we gave them a 2.5 cost of living increase, but they also got step increases. A number of people got step increases. With those step increases, some people got 9.6 to 7.9% increases. And I think that was too high, and so I voted against it. So sometimes you have to be able to say no to people.
The next question comes from our audience, and again, please try to limit it to the time limit. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to bring them up. Since the next city council will determine how we will meet the MPCA requirements for chlorides in wastewater, to what extent are you willing to go to meet the requirement? Don, I believe you were first.
Well, as usual, it's another state mandate. And city and county have struggled for 50 years to meet state mandates. I think we put our foot forward, do the work that, you know, is, I think, responsible, and go from there. You know, if we have a facility that needs to be upgraded, now is the time to be upgrading our standards to, I guess, what the state is imposing on it. You know, short of filing a lawsuit against the state of Minnesota over the regulation, you know, that's fine and dandy, but that costs a lot of money. And I think, you know, to comply with the mandates costs money too. But, you know, there's no easy answer on something like that. But I think in years past, we've always tried to meet our obligations, whether it be a state mandate or our own obligations. There's just not a lot of getting around those. I think working with our legislature or legislators is the best bet on something like that.
Well, there's no doubt that we have some issues there with chloride. One of the things the city of Marshall has done, MMU brought in Sandus wells, which is a lot softer water than we've ever had delivered to the city of Marshall in the past. Part of the problem with discharges is the chloride in the water. So now we have to decide, should we treat that water prior to it getting to the home, or are we going to continue to run softeners in our home and treat it with salt that way? So we need to take a serious look at that and look at what the cost factors would be to treat that water prior to it being sent to the home or not. The other thing is, like Don said, we have got to get in bed with the state and work on this, because the cost of this is astronomical. We've looked at some extremely large dollars there, and where those are going to come from, there's not enough money to go around. So we're going to have some help, unless those regulations are lightened a little bit or they give us some time to do that. Thank you.
I'm going to admit that I don't know much about the chloride issue in Marshall, but the first thing that I'll do is admit that. And then I would research it and find out. I think that, as the two preceding speakers said, state mandates come out of ideas that probably affect a lot of the Twin Cities areas, and then they just extrapolate them over into the rural areas without thinking about what we have out here and what our tax base is and what kind of other responsibilities we have. I think that I would agree with Larry that you have to start talking with the state legislators and kind of lobby our representatives to represent our needs in rural Minnesota and Marshall specifically, so that they can speak on our behalf. Monies are tough. You have to get help from someplace. If they're mandating something from the state, there's no question you have to oblige, but you don't have to do it willingly always.
Well, I think that the water quality is certainly a very important issue that we need to take seriously. And Marshall especially suffers from the supply of water, which we, because we're in a low area, we do not have the aquifers to satisfy our population. And as mentioned, the Sandus Township turned out to be a very good thing, that we can bring water here from that aquifer. But yes, it's funding. We have to look at that also, and it's something that we really need to pay attention to and study. At this point, I don't think we've got any clear ideas on how that should be taken care of. And yes, you know, we would like to get more funding from the state. For a lot of years, the what we call now Greater Minnesota was outstate Minnesota, you know, type of thing, that kind of an attitude, but that is changing, and so hopefully we can work together with the state to take care of this problem.
I'm in the same boat with Dr. Meister. I don't know much about the topic, but one thing being that it would be a state mandate, I definitely agree with him that we would definitely need to work with our state representatives to figure out how we would have to pay for this. Because if the cost is astronomical, as someone noted, I mean, it's not something that we really can probably foot the bill for right off the bat. So we need to research, find out all available options, and lobby our state representatives to work with us if we have to invest a lot into this.
I believe this subject came up at the city council meeting on Tuesday night. That it has a lot to do with the softener discharge and the salt going into the water. And that's where the discussion, like Larry said, comes up with, do we pay to soften the water before it comes to the houses, or, with that. Marty Seifert had commented, I believe he's a lobbyist with the Greater Minnesota City Organization, that they are working with the state on trying to figure out some funding for this, what to do about it, because it's in effect Marshall, and it's, as he says, in effect the smaller towns even worse. But it is something that has to be addressed. If the state mandates it, we as the city just can't say we're not going to do it. I'd love to say we're not going to do it, but it doesn't quite always work that way. So we need to work with the lobbyists. We need to work with MMU on maybe getting our water softer to our houses so we're not discharging so much of that into our wastewater system.
Well, it's hard to add to what's already been said here. I'll just make a few comments. Certainly, we need to be proactive. We need to plan now, work with other communities, work with the legislature, like some of the individuals here have said. We have to study the issue, do some analysis. We have to do cost-benefit analysis for different options. Which one gives us the greatest benefit for the cost? I'm just going to talk about one other thing here with regard to that. I think it's important in the city council to have diversity, people with different levels of expertise. And we have John DeCramer on the city council, and he spends a lot of time on this. He's been on commissions. He brings something of value to the city council. And I think that's true of our city council. When you elect people to the city council, look at their backgrounds and try and get a diversity so you get people with all different types of expertise and knowledge. And we'll end up making better decisions if that's the case. Thank you.
Well, I'm with Dr. Meister. I'm not too well informed on this water treatment issue, but we do have to investigate. We have to think about the future, think about our children and their children's children. So we need to investigate the treatment of it, and we need to fight it. We need to stay in communication with those state reps and keep pushing for the treatments for the water. We use it for everything, and if we're going to have to be watching what's coming in the water, I mean, then you're going to be looking at the expense of it with the water softeners and everything else. I'd rather put the expense into getting the research done and get it taken care of.
How can we best encourage economic and community growth in Marshall?
Well, this would probably be one that I should turn over to Cal. We have a very active EDA board here, and I think since Cal's been on board, we've done a lot of good things as far as the development of things coming to town, and Cal is constantly on top of that. I serve on that EDA board. We have been working hard on Parkway 2 Edition, for example, getting some new housing built out there. When that first came on board about 8-10 years ago, the Parkway 1 immediately sold out as a lower income housing development site. That went over well, and then as the economy turned on a little trodden there, that slowed down a bit. Now we've had some growth there. Also, we've had some looking at, some people looking at putting some apartment houses, et cetera, in other parts of town. We need to take and promote the Red Baron Arena that we have now and to get some growth out there as far as business and so forth, those type of things come in there. We'll continue to work on that and get that basis growing.
How do you draw people? Mr. Doom spoke of building apartments. Well, that's great if you have the people to fill them, but you need jobs to get the people to fill the apartments. So we need to make it so that businesses want to come to Marshall. How do you do that? Well, we're working on the roads with Highway 23, Highway 59. That's an important thing. More importantly, you have to work on the tax code and the building codes. You have to make it easy for people to come and initiate a business, start a business, open up their business, and maintain their business. If you need to redo a building, you have to be able to do it economically without driving yourself out of business before you open the doors to your business. And so we need to look at the rules and regulations that make it easy to open up a business, maintain a business, and run a business. And if you do that, this is a great town. We will draw the people.
And we have been drawing people, which is really a positive, and I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself on that, but the growth that we have seen over the last 7 years is just fantastic. And as Larry said, the combination of the experts that we have in our city staff and with our area chamber, and definitely with our EDA group, and we've been having those three areas that have collaborated in the last few years and have really brought a lot more people into town and brought more businesses. We have grown, some of our hometown businesses have really, that started in Marshall, have really grown and are offering their services not throughout the United States, but for areas besides the Marshall area. And we just have to keep inviting people to come. And we do find now many times that high school students or students that graduated from the university, they graduate and they leave and they don't ever come back hardly. Now we're seeing a big, big difference in that, and the people are coming back because this is a safe community, a growing community, and offers many, many things.
I think for community growth, we do need to be a little less restrictive for businesses. I do believe that we tend to be too controlling, where we put our fingers into too many of the requirements to entice businesses starting here. You know, we have got some new businesses over the last few years, but I don't think the growth is as good as, you know, maintaining what we need. It just needs to, we need to just be less, I mean, not completely throw out all regulations, but we need to be less regulated and just more inviting, more business friendly to incoming businesses.
Economic growth is a good question. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Larry for commenting on Parkway 2. Myself and a fellow business partner are the ones who drove that growth out there in Parkway 2. We have built 4 houses in 1 year. We are in the process of building 8 more houses, hopefully in the next 3 years. We have worked closely with the EDA and the city to get that growth going back out there. Now we need to get the people in to fill the houses. You keep hearing that there's growth in Marshall. I did some Googling on the U.S. Census Bureau, and Marshall's population has dropped since 2010 to 2015. It dropped approximately 300 people. I attribute some of that to overregulation. You know, they're moving to, I don't think they're moving out of the area, I think they're moving to surrounding towns. Because our biggest competition for people moving to this area is the smaller towns around us. It's not the Mankato's or the New Ulms or the Wilmers. It's the Gents, the Linds, the Russells, and they all have housing developments, newer housing developments too. We need to get those people to come to Marshall and bring that tax base into Marshall. And you bring the people to town, you're going to bring the businesses to town. As you all know, that when one restaurant builds, another one closes. We recently lost a fairly new restaurant last week, and I hate to see that stuff happen because that's 10, 15 jobs that are gone.
Well, I believe the key is employment. If you provide jobs, they will come. And to get those jobs, we have to bring in new businesses and industries. And for them to want to be in Marshall, we have to have low tax rates, reasonable regulations, good infrastructure, an educated and plentiful workforce. I mean, they need employees, but they want good employees. And we need good health care facilities to provide health care for young people and retired people. We also need fair and equitable treatment for all businesses, new and old. And sometimes we give preferential treatments to new businesses, and like Mr. Lazinski says, I mean, we drive the existing businesses or existing companies out of business, and that's not fair. And so I think as a city government, we want to make sure that all companies, large or small, get fair and equitable treatment, and that we're not picking winners and losers. Thank you.
I work at Walmart, and there's a lot of, obviously, employment issues, as any other, employer may have. And everybody's just looking for where to shop, where to be at, where I can work, what pays well, what's going to give me my benefits. I know a lot of young people that work at Walmart, and one of their things is there's not enough businesses for my age group. There's not enough entertainment for us to stay here and spend, pretty much to say. We need to bring out our businesses that we have, open them up, as in being exposed more, being more open door, and bringing in those businesses that are still out there to Marshall, so we have our future to stay here. Everybody's driving out of town, and so we need to concentrate on Marshall, and that's what we need to do.
In the years that I've lived here, which again is almost 40 years, most of the new business in town is brought by the local business community through expansion and growing larger. We do have new business moving to town from time to time. We need to work with our EDA. We need to work with the business community. We need to work, we have about the lowest utility for a public utility in the state of Minnesota. We need to keep our taxes low. One of the examples of, is not only Schwann's, but look at Action Track in the last 5 years. They started in a little building over here on the highway on 23 next to Action Sports. Now they're into their second expansion in the industrial park. Those are the types of businesses that thrive and expand in Marshall, or the local ones that expand and grow. Ralco is another possibility. They're growing and expanding as well. So we've got educational opportunities. We've got a 4-year university in town, SMSU. So we've got brain power in the neighborhood. We just need to work together as a community using all the resources available to work together.
Final question. Safety on the Highway 23 corridor is going to be a big issue for this city over the next year. What ideas will you bring to the council to improve safety on that corridor?
The state, in conjunction with the city, has already had multiple conferences over at the library on this, and I've gone to a couple of them. There's a lot of good ideas, and they talk about roundabouts and J-terms and dropping the speed limits. All of them have their own merits. All of them have their own good ideas. We have to try to find the best, most safe option at the best price. Ideally, they've done the studies out there. There's options that are big bucks, very expensive. They also prove to be the most safe for everybody and keep traffic moving. The other ones are not so expensive, but they have some issues. I think that what will work best is working closely with the state on that matter, using their expertise and finding the budget that we can meet to get the best solution to the safety issues out there. Marshall's going to keep expanding south towards Walmart and expand beyond 23. When 23 was there, it just kind of bypassed Marshall. Now it's part of Marshall, and we have to accept that and deal with it and make plans for it.
I'm sorry, but would you please repeat the question, because I'm hard of hearing here and I didn't quite hear what you said.
Safety on the Highway 23 corridor is going to be a big issue for this city over the next year. What ideas will you bring to the council to improve safety?
Well, it's a complicated thing. We have already brought more safety in the Marshall area because of the bypass of 23, and MnDOT is also looking now at doing some work on 19 and so on. And I think that that this is very important. Yes, that we keep the highway area safe, and yet we at the same time we want to keep Marshall open to businesses, travelers, all that come through the area. And I guess, like you said too, we need to work with the state on this and to come up with some solutions.
I look at the 23 corridor, and I know it's not the popular thing, and I know Dr. Meister mentioned that as one of the what people have said was reducing the speed limit, reduce it 10 miles an hour to 45. I mean, I personally wouldn't like it. I mean, I want to get through as fast as I can, like everyone else, but you know, slower speeds give you better reaction times, allows you to see people, see things coming that, you know, when people aren't paying attention, you got a little more response. So one of the things, and I know, like I said, people don't like it, but I would reduce speeds. I mean, driving slower is going to be safer.
The highway corridor, Highway 23 corridor is a thoroughfare through Marshall. And through my years of pulling the marching band trailer up to the cities for 6 weekends out of the fall, we go buzzing through Jordan, which has a very similar situation with Highway 169. And they buzz through Jordan. They're up to 65 miles an hour on that route now. But through the work of J-turns, acceleration lanes, stoplights and so on, they have made that a safer travel through Jordan. I don't know if many of you folks have traveled that way. You know, slowing traffic down is a good idea, but it's a thoroughfare and people don't want to slow down. They want to buzz around. It's a bypass. That's what it was built as a bypass around Marshall. So we'll have to work with the state, like I said, on the access roads, acceleration lanes, and the J-turn has turned out to be a very good addition. I know a lot of people opposed it, but through our travels, I've seen those in the past, and they seem to work very well. And if you drive through Jordan, look at how they have run 169 through Jordan. That's what we need to work to try to achieve through Marshall. Because as they've stated, Marshall's moving south, and that is going to become more in town than out of town.
You know, a lot of effort and time has been put into studying this in the city of Marshall, and I know the city staff has worked at it a lot. On the city council, we have Dave Sturrock, and I know he's spent a great deal of time working on efforts to improve Highway 23. Again, a lot of good suggestions have been offered here. We need to, you know, communicate well with the state. I mean, we're dealing with the state because it's a state highway. We need to offer suggestions and input. Sometimes there are no easy solutions. We need to continue to fight for funding so that we can build the kind of roads and turnways and J-turns and whatever else is needed. But we have to keep exploring options and looking for ways to improve safety. And like I said, sometimes there aren't easy solutions, and the solution you end up with may not please everyone, but we need to continue to work hard to improve and make our roads more safe.
Businesses want to come in and they want to get the traffic in. Slowing down will probably help. But what about when it comes to wintertime? We got to remember the high school is off 23. SMSU is off 23. So we have to look and work with the state to figure out if we're going to keep it at the speed that we're at, or that we're going to reduce it. We have in the consideration of the safety of the high school, we have the consideration of the safety of SMSU, the passengers, the pedestrians that walk across, and also, you know, vehicles crossing abroad. So to find different ways of creating a safety corridor on 23 is something that's really going to have to be worked on and focused on for future time to come along.
I've seen the growth of Marshall and the growth around Highway 23 for many years. At one time I thought, you know, we had a very little problem, even though there were accidents occurring. I thought most of that was inattentive driving. You look at County Road 7 out there, it's flat as a pancake in all directions. You can see everything everywhere. And yet we have accidents out there. So I guess in my mind, we need to continue to work with the state. We do have too many access points getting onto 23, such as South 4th Street. You've got the street you can get off there by the clinic and the old Kmart, and just down from that by Independent Lumber. There should have been more access roads built, like in front of Action Sports down to Awards Plus in that area, along Hy-Vee, and past the old Marshall Foods building. But those days gone by, what I would like to see nowadays is lower speed, maybe down to 45 mile an hour. The J-turn, I think, at Saratoga works well, and maybe put another J-turn in out at County Road 7. I think the stoplights are effective, and the lower speeds around the university and the high school are fairly working as well. So that's what I would like to see myself.
Well, there's no doubt the Highway 23 bypass has been a big concern for the city of Marshall for a lot of years. There's been a lot of studies done on that, and we've done some things to develop it. I think a lot's been said here tonight, but in general, if we have traffic that merges better, we have control lanes and traffic flows, just a straight type thing, you know, where we have left and right end turns coming on and off that way. I think we need to become better, more alert, and safe for drivers.
All right, it's now time for our 2-minute closing statements, and we will start with Elaine.
I've served on the council now for 4 years, and I would like to continue if that's everybody's wish. But it's been a wonderful time to be with the council, because, as I said before, there's been so much growth in our community, not just with business growth, economic growth, but things to offer are people coming into the community, like the sports arena, and I would continue to push for more cultural growth in Marshall, because we work with the MAFAC and SMOC, and we have done the downtown murals and Mrs. Whitney's statue, and we're looking at other statues. Everybody likes to have a variety of things, and I'm proud of the fact that we've had so much economic growth in our community, and I hope that we can continue to do that.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. Thank all the panelists and moderators for putting this on. You know, this is the first time I've ever run for anything, even though I was a political science student at SSU. I never did really run for anything, but I want to try to bring a different culture to the city. I want to something that's a little more fiscal responsible, you know, encouraging more development for Marshall's people rather than trying to, you know, buy the, you know, I mean, the regional sports complex is nice. I don't think it was the right priority at the time, given that we need more classrooms. You know, the school failed. The school vote failed because I think, you know, we put our effort into that rather than into the schools. And I just want to try to make things easier, less regulation, encourage business growth, and hopefully get the community to grow more.
I'd like to thank the members of the board and all the other members up here we're debating with. I've been a member of Marshall community for all about 2 years of my life. My wife Emily and I raised our 4 children here with them attending the same schools that I did. During my time in Marshall, I've run my own business, been active as a private citizen in local politics, and served 2 terms with the Planning and Zoning Commission, with 2 years of it as chairman. I started my own business 21 years ago, and I'm still running it today. All these opportunities have helped me understand the needs of Marshall and the community members as a business owner. As a member of the City Council, I will support all citizens and local businesses to ensure that the ordinances being passed are representative of the population as a whole. I believe the private sector can make many of these decisions on their own with minimal input from local government. I will also work on your city council. I will also work as your city council member to watch out for your money. I do not believe in endless spending on projects, but in fiscal responsibility. We all work hard for our money, and I intend to work hard to make sure that we keep a lid on spending and keep property taxes affordable. With so many years' experience of running my own business, I know what it takes to keep budgets in check, the ability to work within a budget, and to keep it down. By doing that, we'll save everyone in Marshall money and promote growth. I will be a voice on the City Council for the citizens of Marshall. I would appreciate your vote on November 8th, James Lozinski, City Council, Ward 3. Thank you.
I think it's great that we have so many candidates running for city council. You know, competition makes us all better, and it's important that voters have choices. When I ran for city council 4 years ago, I made certain campaign promises, and I believe I've kept those promises. I told the voters that I'm a fiscal conservative, and over the past 4 years, I've done my best to help control the growth of government spending and to hold down tax increases. I also promised the taxpayers and voters that I would ask tough questions and that I would do my homework and be thoroughly prepared for meetings. If you'll ask any member of the city council or if you ask members of the city staff, I'm sure they'll confirm the fact that I ask lots of tough questions, and when I come to meetings, I'm thoroughly prepared for those meetings. One of the candidates has indicated that I often vote no on issues. We all know that it's easier to say yes to people than to say no. But there are times when no is the correct answer. A few weeks ago, I voted no on 2 issues because I thought what the city was doing was in violation of state law. The city attorney did some research and found out that I was right. This council then rescinded its previous actions. Those were certainly situations where no was the correct choice. Many of the no votes that I've made over the past 4 years have pertained to change orders that have increased the costs of the Merit Center and hockey arena. Considering that almost 40% of the voters were opposed to the taxpayer dollars to be spent on those projects, it seems reasonable that at least 1 out of 7 members of the City Council would stand up for their views. Eric Erickson is a radio show host, and recently he wrote an article that I found very interesting. In his article, he stated the following: doing what's right is always more important than doing what's liked. Later, he stated the following: what matters more to me now is to do what I think is right, not to do what is popular. It is not to lead others, but to speak for those who cannot speak and do for others what they cannot do. As a member of the City Council, that has been my political philosophy. I try to do what I think is right, not what I think will help me get reelected. I want to thank the citizens of Ward 1 for giving me the opportunity to serve them these past 4 years. It's been an honor and a privilege serving them. Thank you.
Moving here in 2009 from Texas, I have learned that the community is what leads everyone together forward. You stay united, and in times of trouble or whatever it may be, everybody's there for you. I have learned that people around here have told me that, why are you running for city council? And I said, well, I'm a people person. I like to talk to everybody. Most of the people knew me from Hy-Vee. I used to be a manager there. And they always asked, you know, what are you willing to do if you stay in Marshall? And I said, well, I would like to get involved with politics. And it would probably be involving with me getting into the city council or anything that I can do to help my community here in Marshall. So I'm here to establish the communication with the community. I am here to listen. I am here to put your concerns first, not my concerns. If I just go with I, then how do I know how everybody else is feeling about it? So here to bring more businesses, to bring growth and employment, to bring growth with the younger community, to bring growth for other diverse communities that we have here, the Hispanics and Somalis and all of them here. They need a voice, and we need to all unite and make Marshall successful as it has been for the past years, and make us stronger and be Marshall the place to be.
I have touted my experience tonight, and I guess that part of the reason I chose to run again this year, offer my experience to the city of Marshall, not just on the old serving as a city council member, but serving on the Utilities Commission, the Planning and Zoning Board. I currently sit on a board on airport with Lyon County in the city of Marshall. And those types of things. I've been very involved over the years. I am a fiscal conservative. Again, I said my goal in budget time is 1 to 2% growth in the budget. I think growth in the city of Marshall through local businesses expanding, using our EDA and other opportunities to bring businesses to town, help the tax base to grow year in and year out. I think, you know, I come from the private sector, and I deal in retail. I keep people on the retail level day in and day out. And some people are hurting. Some people are getting by. Some people do very well. But it's that connection with the people that I see every day, day in and day out. 5 to 6 days a week, I'm talking to somebody from Redwood Falls or Pipestone or somewhere in the area. And I just have a connection with local people and from all backgrounds of life. Just one last thing, I want to thank the chamber, and I want to thank the radio station and the newspaper for their participation tonight. And then one last thing. Years ago, when I did sit on the city council, one year during budget time, we were looking through TIF financing. Well, if anybody knows TIF financing, Glenn, it's very difficult to understand, to state program taxable, to help businesses expand. I found a problem that year in one of our TIF districts that nobody in the room knew about, and that included our city finance director. So I get the job. You know, I understand what the job is about. I come from an accounting background, and I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.
My wife Jackie and I have lived in Marshall for the past 45 years. We have 2 children, Lisa and Tate. We have 6 grandchildren. I was born and raised on a good Catholic farm over in Cotton, Minnesota. I worked for the local John Deere dealer for 42 years in sales. In the past 2 years, I've been semi-retired and I work part-time at Ace Harbor. I've always been totally involved in the community. I'm a member of the Holy Redeemer Parish, where I'm on the Eucharistic minister, I'm a lector, faith formation teacher. I'm a member of both the 3rd and 4th degree Knights of Columbus. I am the chancellor of the 3rd degree. I'm a pilot of the 4th degree and captain of the honor guard. I've served the city of Marshall for the past 12 years as a city council member. During those years, I've witnessed tremendous growth. Main Street redevelopment, Memorial Park, Highway 23 bypass, Saratoga conflict intersection, and overpass. Both of those things have saved tremendous lives within our city, and I'm proud of that. Bike paths, miles and miles of bike paths throughout the city, and also connecting now to Camden State Park. Tremendous retail development. The Merritt Center, Red Baron Arena, ACMC Clinic and Surgical Center, Salem Marshall Winter Memorial Hospital to Avera. We are truly blessed for the people that have invested within the city of Marshall. When elected, I'll continue working hard to promote that growth. Growth will increase the tax base within our city, which will help hold down the taxes that we pay. For this to continue, we must become more builder and business friendly by understanding what the codes really say. We need to be open and honest with anyone looking to build or expand here. We need to welcome them with open arms and to court them as if it was our very first date. We need to become an open builder and business friendly community where people are scrambling to build here rather than looking elsewhere. I will work to keep Marshall a safe, friendly community where you want to have your children and grandchildren live and attend school, and then when the time comes to retire here. When I'm elected, I will work to finish Memorial Park with a Veterans Memorial. Many families have made sizable donations to this project, and I will work to make that project complete. I'll work to keep City Hall downtown, and also I think I would work hard to make affordable apartments above the downtown businesses. Now that I work part-time, I have more time to be totally committed to the city of Marshall. I'm currently serving on 6 committees, and I'm Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for allowing me to serve these past 12 years, and I would ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
I'm Steve Meister. I came here in 1995 as a medical student assigned by the University of Minnesota. We fell in love with this town. We wanted to come back. We did come back. The Marshall that I saw in 1995 was what drew us here. I think that we've come a long way since 95, but I think we have a long way to go. And the way that we're going now, we're at a crossroads. And I think that the council that's serving now has done a good job. They brought us this far. But I think we need new voices and new eyes and new experiences to help guide us forward going to the future. I bring a lot of experience from a lot of places. I grew up in Cloquet, Minnesota. I went to the University of Minnesota for medical school. I went to Marshall, Minnesota, the 3rd year medical school. I served in Oceanside, California with the United States Marine Corps doing my residency at Naval Hospital Camp Pendleton. I went to Guam. I've been all over the world. I've seen a lot of stuff. One of those experiences helped give me a foundation of new experiences to bring to Marshall. You know, when you're stuck here and you've been on council for a long time, you get a lot of experiences, but you almost become myopic. And I think there's benefit in bringing new eyes for new vision. So with that, I look forward to serving on Ward 2. Meister for Marshall, Ward 2. I appreciate your vote.
Okay, this concludes our debate for the Marshall City Council. The Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce thanks the candidates for participating and our panelists, Aaron and Karen, and wishes good luck to all of our candidates. From the Marshall area wide, this has been the 2016 local candidates debate. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to vote on Tuesday, November 8th. Have a great evening.